Welcome to the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast, where we break down Bendis' iconic run on Ultimate Spider-Man, issues 1 through 160 in Earth 1610. I'm Zach, and joining me today is the voice inside my head, John Opat.
Good morning.
How we doing, man?
Great. This feels like a longer break than that entire break that we took. This past 2 weeks has felt like a longer break.
Because things actually happened. We weren't just cooped up at home.
Things actually happened, and we were leaving off our Spider-Man story in kind of an important place. Right after we hopped off last week, I did some research on some stuff we were talking about, and I was like, I gotta wait 2 weeks to tell all this to Zach again.
Oh, I'm so glad you remembered to bring that up, and I hope you do when we actually are into the issues.
I will. I have them pulled up in tabs on my computer so I don't forget.
Oh my God, look at that. That's why you're the best host on this podcast.
It's second best, at least.
Top two, and you ain't two. Yeah, so, okay, I gotta tell you about this last weekend, and the
Zach
reason...
went to a show.
Sort of, not really. This is the reason we didn't do the podcast last week. If you look up online Swamp Fest, you will see endless videos of just the craziest things that you've ever seen, okay? This is a BMX, event, camping event, festival in the swamps in Florida. And I had seen the videos of it in previous years and was like, oh, that looks insanely dangerous. I gotta go. And I'm not a skateboarder or a BMX guy. I just needed to see it with my own eyes. And so...
But you do carry that vibe.
I do carry that vibe, honestly. If I didn't have weak ankles and wasn't the most athletic person on God's green earth, I would probably try some of this stuff.
Okay.
I went with two buddies, and... we were so excited. We were doing that thing when people go to Vegas where they're talking it up the whole time. They're like, man, this city isn't ready for us. John, we lasted 7 hours at Swamp Fest. And most of that was setting up our campsite and just meeting people and politicking around the campgrounds. Very little of that was actually spent in Swamp Fest.
So what happened?
Oh my God. Well, you seriously have to watch videos of this thing, okay? You seriously have to look up Swamp Fest on YouTube. But, so John, what had happened was... I'm seeing fire. Lots of fire in every video thumbnail. That's what... Yeah, they do light stuff on fire.
Final Chaos and Fire, Swamp Fest 2025.
Yeah. I didn't make it to that part. So we watched a couple of hours of the actual Swamp Fest on the first day, and it's people skating and biking around.
Skating? It's not a music thing?
It's not.
It's just BMX guys BMXing?
Yes, there's one band at the end of the first night, but for the most part, it's not a music thing.
What was the band called? Did it have a ridiculous name?
Drosera. Anyways, you get down there and the videos look crazy enough, but then you get down there and you're like, this environment is way more dangerous than I thought it was. Because I'm realizing every single person here is insanely drunk, and all of this stuff that you see was not made by engineers or woodworkers. This was made by BMX guys who rented a Caterpillar. So it's built Ed, and Eddie built it. I'm watching people just bust through wood.
And you're standing on it?
Yeah, and you're elevated 15 feet in the air, and they're just busting through plywood, and you see that there's nothing under it. And I'm like, this is not a safe environment.
So you guys made it 7 hours.
We made it about 7 hours from when we entered the front gate to when my buddy got taken out in an ambulance, because during the band, they had this big-ass mosh pit. But keep in mind, these aren't hardcore kids moshing. These are BMX guys who are blackout drunk, who are imitating what they think moshing is. So they're throwing trash cans, they're throwing bicycles, they're throwing sawhorses, they're throwing gallons of water. And my buddy went in there in Crocs. His Crocs, I can only assume, exploded off of his feet because the next time I saw him, he was barefoot. He lost his hat, his sunglasses, and his wedding ring. He steals a bike, rides it in. I kind of lose sight of him, and then like a minute later, I see him swinging this bike over his head like a weapon. He's just going goblin mode, and he is the danger in this pit. And he eventually gets out, and we see
he tired himself out.
Literally, he's dripping blood.
That's like he was swinging bike tires around, so that was, I don't know if that's what you meant when you said literally, but
yeah,
he tired.
Yeah.
Himself. Okay. Go on.
No, that
Sorry
is good.
Sorry for my interruptions.
No, this is great. Anyways, we see that he's dripping blood, leaving a trail of blood everywhere he goes. And we look at his feet, and they're just absolutely wrecked. I mean, he shredded his feet and had no idea that he was like squirting blood everywhere until we brought his attention to it. And there's no EMS anywhere. There's no security. There's no event staff. They didn't even have ambulances like on site ready to go. They were calling ambulances 40 minutes away from Gainesville to come out there as things happened. And so he like blacked out. And do you know what a good blood pressure is, John? Do you know what the right score is supposed to be?
No, but I just went and got my blood pressure checked, and it was 127 over like 80. And I was thinking to myself, could be good, could be bad. You never know.
That isn't bad. It's the ideal blood pressure is 120 over 80. Okay.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. My buddy was
on the money.
My buddy was at 60 over nothing.
Jeez.
Yeah. So he took like 2 bags of fluid and a sternal rub and a trip to the ER. And we were like, we cannot go back after this.
So what's the top number mean and what's the bottom number mean?
I don't know. I'm not a science.
Hey, but luckily, science is out there. Could you write it? Tell us, is 60 over nothing a good blood pressure?
Well, his brother.
Why is that bad?
His brother that was with us is an EMT. And we were like, Will, have you ever seen someone with a 60 over nothing blood pressure? And he's like, I have. And we were like, have you seen anyone worse than that?
Have you seen anyone alive?
He's like, that's about where it cuts off to where I've never seen anything worse than that. If you're worse than that, you're just dead. So anyways, we did like a 15-hour drive down there, spent about 7 hours, got a hotel, and then drove back 15 hours.
That is not similar to, but it does remind me of my Super Bowl trip. Because do people know this?
No, you've never said this story.
Back when Peyton Manning and the Broncos went to the Super Bowl against the Seahawks in New York, I got tickets for my brother and I and drove to pick him up in Washington, D.C., then because he was at school over there at that time, then to New Jersey, New York to go to the game. And we got a hotel room to celebrate the night after. Obviously the Broncos would be Super Bowl champions. And I got thrown out of the game for being a drunk like 5 minutes into the game. But then what really reminded me of it, that also is kind of similar, drove all that way for not very much time. But then we also just drove back to DC that night. There was no vibes to be had there, So didn't enjoy the hotel, spent a bunch of money. It was a great use of like $3,000.
The hotel didn't even see you.
They didn't. Yeah, they were probably pretty confused. Actually, I probably didn't even notice.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I had the same thought. I was driving back and thinking to myself, I wonder if this is how John felt missing all but 5 minutes of the Super Bowl.
Did you really think that?
I did, yeah.
Wow, that's funny.
Yeah, so all in all, good trip. Gonna be back. We definitely, we actually decided, we're like, we got to run it back. It's not ending like this.
Why? That sounds so bad.
Because we're not quitters.
Dangerous.
It is very dangerous.
Shyla's going to let you go back?
She is in denial right now, but it's not up to her.
Does that mean you're in denial? Is that what that actually means?
No, dude, I'm going to make it happen.
Okay, we'll see. I can't wait to hear about it. Swamp Fest 2026.
Let's go, baby.
Okay, cool. So that's why we didn't record. So what else happened? Anything?
No, that was pretty much it for me.
I meant anything for the 2 weeks. Anything else you want to touch on?
Oh, man. Well, there was the end of Invincible.
Well, I figured we'd talk about all of our fun stuff at the end.
Okay.
List.
Like shows?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then no. Nothing else for the 2 weeks. For me, at least.
Me neither. I had a boring 2 weeks. And by that, I mean I was doing like busy stuff the whole time.
Yeah.
Except for all these shows that are on.
Dude, it's the golden age of television right now.
We didn't get to talk about Daredevil last week.
I know.
Or 2 weeks ago. I had so much to say.
My other show, The Wheel of Time, is back on. And that's pretty good.
And Righteous Gemstones came back on, the funniest show on TV.
I do need to watch that.
That's where Baby Billy's name comes from.
Yeah, I know that.
Okay. Spider-Man?
Yeah, let's get into some Spider-Man stuff. But first, a word from our sponsor, Swamp Fest.
Every business says they're better. But the ones that earn and display the BBB seal back it up. It instantly identifies businesses that are committed to operating with integrity, honoring promises, and telling the truth. Makes you wonder why every business doesn't have it. So look for it, because it's looking out for you. That's why it's the sign of a better business. And find a better business anytime at bbb.org.
Did you know that we are on episode 99?
We are.
That's crazy. Does that count the bonus episodes?
It does not.
Okay, so we actually have gone over 100.
Yeah.
Well, should we still have some sort of celebration next week?
Yeah, how about we finish Ultimate Doom next week? That'll be a treat.
Or maybe we could say 100 things we like about Spider-Man.
Yeah, let's do that.
I like his sexy Aunt May.
I like his hot girlfriends.
Okay. There's 2. We've got 98 more to go.
Just to be
for
clear.
Next week.
Well, I'll name all the girlfriends. And just to be clear,
Okay.
I'm talking about the versions of them that are adults, not the ones we're reading about in this series.
I don't think you had to clarify it.
The hot fictional adults.
Okay. So episode 99, Ultimate Doom 1 and 2. Where did we leave off? Oh! I know where we left off.
Tell us, John. Tell us.
I will. Dr. Doom, I'm sorry. Reed Richards, he's being a bit of a prick right now. And he's, sent a giant squid monster goo thing to take over the world. And he seems to have a bunch of Gilroy the Destroyers at his disposal. And Sue Storm found him. And then she's all bloody. And she says, I know what he's up to. And she's back with all of our friends.
That's right.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Do you remember last week there was that shot of the White House?
Yes.
That had the squid stuff on it, and then it cut to a flashback.
And I did a really bad job of remembering what it was from, but eventually figured it was probably from Ultimate Powers.
Well, so you did a good job because it was from that. I just am going to clarify exactly what happened, okay? I'm going to give us the run-through of that story because it actually seems important. So, Dr. Fantastic Four, Reed Richards, sends some probes into other dimensions to just, explore. And then, at the end of that issue, which is issue 1, the Squadron Supreme comes over, or maybe it's the end of issue 2. I don't know, right? They come over, and that's when that stuff with the White House happens. That's in the Squadron Supreme universe, where that creature is like destroying the United States. And then they come over into our universe, and that's when they like fight the Ultimates, and that's when the conversation happens that they're like, Reed Richards, you're coming with us for your crimes against humanity. And he's like, okay. So then he goes over into the Ultimate Power universe with the Squadron Supreme. And dude, sometimes explaining comic book stuff or like League of Legends stuff is so fucking dorky. I just like can't help but like listen to myself and be like, what are you even saying? Like my buddy's always like, I've got my Locket of the Iron Solari. I'm ready to shield.
I think that so many times about myself. It's so strange how dorky I am 24/7 at all times. And then I'll look at someone else and be like, dork.
Science nerd. So okay, so then the reason that they arrested Reed was they thought his like probes that he sent over, they thought he did that. Like that was a part of his plan to like take over with that creature. But as the series goes on, we find out that it's actually like Dr. Emil Blonsky of the Squadron Supreme verse. That's like, he's like a scientist over there, but he's secretly a bad guy. And you find out that he was tasked with a way to like kill the ultimates of that universe. Some hero named Hyperion, I think. I don't know. Haven't read it, didn't read the comic. And he created that monster like as a way to potentially destroy him. And then when Reed Richards sent his drones over, he was like, "Oh, I can like form this plan to like pin this on this Reed Richards of another universe." So anyway, of course, they end up like figuring that out. But I think the understanding or the inference that we're about to get is that these creatures that Reed is now using, that's where he like learned about them. And that's where he now like has that, he knows how to control it because of his time over there.
Well, good job, John, summarizing all that and putting it in context of what we have here. I feel really bad that I took one look at that series and was like, oh, this is ass cheeks and it doesn't apply to us. We're not going to read it for the podcast.
Well, it does sound interesting, but I trust you if you say it's bad. But if you haven't read it, then...
I guess I didn't realize that it was going to directly relate to this series because I had read this series before and I thought I pretty much understood everything.
Well, you probably did just like assume that, because haven't we seen a squid creature before? Weren't we talking about that? There was like a different squid creature, right?
Not before this Ultimate Doomsday series.
Oh, it's only been in this?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, we got it. Yep. We got all the info we need. We're all caught up.
We did such a good job.
We did. Okay, see you next week. Episode 100.
All right, so getting into Ultimate Doom #1. This is written by Brian Michael Bendis, penciled by Rafa Sandoval, inked by Roger Benet, colored by Matthew Wilson, and lettered by VC's Joe Caramagna. And we open on Sue Storm in Project Pegasus, discovering that Reed is the one behind everything. And she starts crying and says, "You faked your death. You killed your family. You attacked this world. Why would you do this?" And Reed says if she was smart enough to find him, she's smart enough to figure it out. He still thinks she just showed up there like on her own volition and wasn't just teleported there by Rick Jones.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And he says, let's not turn this into a scene. Goodbye, Susan. And he sicks a Gilroy the Terrible on her. And she starts holding Gilroy off with her force field and says, you don't kill. You don't steal. That is not... And Reed snaps and says, that is not what? The man that you love? What kind of man am I exactly? You don't know how I think or what I've discovered. I've made scientific revelations that if I even described to you, you wouldn't know what I was talking about. And he says if they were still dating, he wouldn't have had the time to make his discoveries, so he thanks Sue for freeing him. This is not a surprise, but he's being a real dick here.
He's definitely like very childish, you know? Like he's just like a teenager who got like broken up with.
He's vindictive.
He's a good guy. He seems like a keeper.
Sue says he's coming with her, and Reed says, Susan, I figured out how to disarm you 10 minutes after you broke up with me. That's all it took. 10 minutes. And he presses a button, and Sue starts getting shocked. That's also pretty dastardly that she broke up with him, and immediately he's like, how do I take this down?
Well, he's kind of like, I'm sure you've heard the phrase, like he's kind of like nice guys, where they're like, oh my gosh, you're so beautiful, you know, will you go out with me? And they're like, no. And he's like, okay,
right. She starts choking him with a force field, but he just contorts his neck to absurd proportions to counteract it. And I feel like this is how to make Reed Richards scary in the best way. Is A, like he's the most dangerous mind on Earth and he's against you. And then B, you almost forget about his powers. And then he uses it in a way like this where it's like, oh my God, this guy is like unkillable and we don't even know what he's capable of. And he's completely focused on destroying me. It's very terrifying.
I'm like trying to just look at the pictures, and I was kind of trying to comprehend what was happening. So he stretches his neck and he destroys the force field that she had him in.
Yes.
And then it looks like she like blows up his head like baby proportions. So it does look like maybe she's about to pop him.
Yeah. I took that
as... then on the next page, that is where he looks kind of menacing there, you know.
He's like become a grotesque giant man.
Yeah.
Which he technically could do. We never really see him do that when he's good, but he's clearly capable of it. And he gets real big and mad and starts trying to kill her. And Rick Jones is watching from the shadows the whole time, and he steps out and he says, now I know this is why I was sent here. You're the reason. And he changes into his energy form and starts blasting at Reed. And apparently he destroys some important machinery, because Reed says, you idiot, you broke the... And Rick and Sue grab each other and teleport to the Triskelion.
And Reed is like hanging on to like rubble to prevent from being sucked into some vortex.
Yes. And we cut to the basement of the Roxxon Corporation, where Jessica Drew is bolted down to a lab table. And she wakes up and hears people talking about her. And we see that she's surrounded by the Roxxon Brain Trust. And they tell her their real mission was to catch anyone who tried to infiltrate Roxxon. And someone says, I think she knows that part. Tell her the part she doesn't know. And one of them says, oh, I think she's figured it out herself. And we see Dr. Otto Octavius enter the room and say, Jessica, it's good to see you again.
He's still alive.
He is still alive. And he's
When was the last time we saw him? Was he escaping the Triskelion or something?
Oh, I thought it was the Clone Saga.
Dude, I don't know. When
he made her and it wasn't the metal, he could control the arm. It wasn't the arms. He could control the metal.
So I think he did escape the Triskelion there.
I think he maybe escaped around the same time Norman Osborn escaped, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm just assuming everyone escaped the Triskelion at that point.
Yeah.
It's heavily implied they're going to torture Jessica for information. And we cut back to the Triskelion where Sue is getting rushed into the medical bay on a stretcher. And outside of her room, Johnny explodes at Rick and says, Richards, where is he? Take me to him. And Rick says he doesn't know where Reed is. And Johnny gets so mad he flames on and sets off the sprinkler system. And everyone starts trying to calm Johnny down, and Rick says, I think he fell into a wormhole. And they're like, what do you mean by that? And he goes, I'm sorry, I'm only 16. I don't know what things are. And I thought that was just like some delightful Bendis dialogue.
That is.
I know a lot of people don't like when Bendis has all of his characters talk like that because it's not realistic. That's not how witty people are in real life, and no one makes jokes in like serious situations. But for reading a comic book, I do think it enhances the experience.
I was trying to think of like any of my kids that would say this, and the only one I could think of that would be like funny enough to say that, like just quickly, is just like my most autistic kid, who's hilarious. He would come up with that. He'd be like, I don't know, I'm only 16. I don't know what this is.
It reminds me of a time I asked Shyla something about her childhood, and she just said, deadpan, well, I was very small back then, so I don't really remember. And I was like, that's just a funny way to word it. And she's like, what's funny about it? It's the truth. And I'm like, I don't know. Just the fact that you said, well, I was very small back then.
That is
like,
funny.
Yeah, obviously.
That is funny. Okay, Zach. Now you have a sister, correct?
Yeah.
So if she dated a guy and then she broke up with him and then he, I don't know, like became crazy and like took over the world and like started destroying everything, how would that make you feel as a brother? Let's put ourselves in the mind of Johnny Storm here.
It would not feel good, but I would maybe be like,
you'd be like a little proud of your sister, right?
Well, I would think, okay, this is going to suck, but maybe let's like make nice with this guy because we already have an existing relationship with him. Let's not make this harder on ourselves. But,
so you would pawn her off in an instant. You gotta get back together with him. Look around you.
I wouldn't go that far, but I'd be like, hey, maybe grab coffee with the guy sometime and just say like,
definitely.
Remember when we went to Maine? Just like something. Just hey, remember the good times? Baby, don't kill me and my family
and everyone.
Yeah, that's why I'm not a hero. I probably wouldn't fight back.
Or maybe, Zach, that's why you are a hero. Okay.
And these guys that just resort to punching aren't?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I think the Maker deserves to get taken down, and I would not be the guy to do it.
I think a good therapist could have prevented a lot of problems.
Yeah. I mean, that's true of any story, right?
No, I'm actually just kidding. He's pretty f***ed up. He was probably going to destroy the world. Let's not try to solve the Maker with therapy.
I think it'd be interesting.
Therapy is not a catch-all.
Okay.
Okay, what are we rating this out of?
Well, hold on. There's just like a couple more things. So they're about to teleport out of there because they're going to go find Reed and kick his ass. They realize there's a bunch of commotion coming from Sue's room. Because keep in mind, it's still like sprinkling in the building because of Johnny. And she's flatlined and they're trying to defibrillate her, but it's not working. And she's all wet and the paddles are all wet. And I know from my one summer as a lifeguard, you can't defibrillate someone who's all wet.
No.
You got to dry them off. And a doctor says no response. And the issue ends with Johnny and Ben both like collapsing to the ground.
Now, there was a part of me, since this is a first read podcast, and you've read this before and you know what happens and I hadn't. There was a small part of me, there is, that Sue Storm might die here. I mean, I don't know what happens. She could.
It looks like a possibility.
So, who knows? Maybe. I didn't really think it was going to, but I was like, she could.
For sure.
Be sad for Ben.
Well, that seems to be like the takeaway from the final page is like, oh my god, next issue, they're going to lose Sue.
They're going to kill Sue Storm.
Wow.
But guess what? She'll probably just make a force field and heal somehow.
Probably. She might be on death's doorstep, and then all of her skin falls off, and she's a glowing purple energy being underneath all that skin.
She might. That has
skin
happened before.
Was
If I had
holding
a
her
nipple-
back this whole time. What if that's just the solution to every death for the rest of the time in the Marvel Universe?
They just become a big purple glowing person.
Yes.
I'd read that book.
So I kind of thought about this one. Tell me if you had the same observation. This didn't feel like it was in the superhero genre. This specific issue felt more like a psychological horror movie that I was watching, where it's like the theme is, because there's the A plot and the B plot, it's both Jessica and Sue Storm just getting like caught and tortured and betrayed by like the worst people in their lives, and it's all these people menacing them and saying creepy things to them, and we're just like watching these women suffer. It felt like a psychological horror movie.
That's true. I hadn't thought about it like that, but you're right. They are kind of connected thematically.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was on purpose. Probably.
I think so, because that is the totality of this issue. I know my coverage of this one went fast because it reads fast. I mean, it's a lot of talking, but it reads fast because it's a lot of the same talking, right? It's like, you can't do this. You betrayed me. Oh my God. Not you, Reed.
If you just kept kissing me, I wouldn't be doing any of this.
So I kind of liked this from the lens of this is a departure from the superhero genre. And I gave this an 8 out of 10 superheroines in danger. But I will give it this caveat. If this is them suffering to set up for like a more rewarding victory, I like that. If this is just suffering for the sake of like, we hate women, we're going to tell a story where the women just get tortured, that's not as cool.
Yeah, I don't think that's what's happening.
That's what I'm saying. I'm telling you.
I think sometimes you just have female characters that are put in bad spots also.
That's what happened. And spoiler, it's gonna be all right for Jessica and Sue Storm.
We'll see.
Going through this episode will make their victory a little bit sweeter.
Or maybe they'll die and get cannibalized by a big monster man.
That's right. The Blob will say they taste like chicken.
Exactly. That's a callback to a worse issue.
True.
Okay, we ready? Ultimate Doom number 2?
Well, what do you give this one? What's your rating?
Oh gosh, Zach. I don't know. You know, I guess I had fun with it. Let me do a quick scroll back through. Okay, well, I also did want to make a note that we did get them.
What did we get them on?
Well, in the last issue and in the very first panel of this issue, Reed clearly has like some numbers on his shoulder patches. Because remember, we talked about how it looked like a football jersey?
Yeah.
And for the rest of it, he does not. So we did get them. So I got to deduct at least half a point, obviously.
Sure.
Yeah, the Jessica Drew stuff, I don't know. Wasn't really catching me. You know, I don't like it. She got captured too easily. I guess Doc Box back. That's cool. I'm gonna give this one a 7 out of 10 because also I did find it a little bit annoying how often we just hear Johnny Storm like scream and like lose his composure. You know?
Yeah. Well, they don't have anything else for him to really do in this issue.
That's why I wanted us to put ourselves inside the mindset of him, see what we would do.
Yeah.
Just scream and turn into fire in a hospital.
Well, you know, when you can turn into fire, everything looks like a nail.
That's just about to say. Yep. Okay, Ultimate Doom number 2.
Take us there.
So the story opens with Sue Storm's heart and it's flatlining.
Hold on real quick. Can I just say one thing about these covers?
I would love it if you did.
These are done by Brian Hitch, the guy who did Ultimates.
Awesome. And Spider-Man does have a different look to him. So, the story opens with Sue Storm's heartbeat, and it's flatlining. And Johnny's yelling, "Sue!" as he's been doing. And they're trying to do the clear thing, but just like Zach said, it's not going to work because she's all wet. And then we kind of hear like a monologue, just the way it's set up. The whole screen is black. All we see is the flat line. But then we can kind of like hear or see not people talking, but almost like mentally. And it's Sue, and she says, "Like I died and gone to heaven. Aren't you just all cute today? I took my cute pills. You did." And it's Sue and Reed that are talking back in the past. I know that was terribly explained, but I was trying my best.
No, it was good. I really like this opening page and this transition. I was instantly hooked. I think the way that they used it, and you can tell the first page with the flat line, you can tell that was 2 pages. It was a 2-page spread. And there's something so cool about how what is actually happening is above the line, and then what is happening in her head is below the line, and it's kind of fading.
Yep.
And then you turn the page, and yeah, it's a flashback to back when everything felt right, and her and Reed Richards were together, and they were cute, and he seemed like a good guy.
Well, we'll see. Zach, much better explanation than mine. That's why you're the best host on this podcast.
Oh, stop it, you.
So, Reed and Sue are having a picnic, and this is a flashback. But, Reed looks so young. Even last issue, I was like, dude, he's like a teenager. I think that they should have made him older. Just like a little older.
Well, at this point, it wasn't really their decision to make. Mark Millar wrote the Fantastic Four in the Ultimate Universe. And what we had seen of them before that comic came out, every time Bendis talked about the Fantastic Four, he definitely had a more traditional conception of them in mind for this universe.
So do you think Reed's brain isn't fully developed?
Emotionally, no, I don't think it is. I think he can do all of these science things, but emotionally, he clearly, is still like a young man.
I wonder when he turns like 35, whenever he thinks about all this stuff, he's just gonna like immediately like put his head in his hands and be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I tried to take over the world because a girl broke up with me. That's so cringe."
Well, I'll tell you no, that doesn't happen, because we see the Maker in comics, and he's aged up, quite a bit, and he's just as bad as ever.
Okay. Well, too bad. So, they're having their flashback. And Reed or Sue, I don't know, I can't really tell, but one of them's like, they're on the top of the Baxter building, and they're like, "We should come up here for picnics more often." And Reed's like, "Oh, I've never been on a picnic before," and blah, blah, blah. And Reed's staring out into the city, and Sue says, "What are you thinking?" And he says, "I don't like this world, Susan." And she says, well, we should find another one then. Maybe move into the negative zone. And he says, "No, the negative zone's uninhabitable. But imagine all the other dimensional planes we're going to be able to find. Worlds upon worlds. And out there somewhere, there's one that's perfect. And if it's not, maybe we can make it perfect."
Hey, what if that was like the premise of a new Ultimate Universe right now being written?
See, this is where the other week you were like, who wrote this? Bendis wrote this.
Bendis wrote this.
And we're like, Bendis should get credit for creating the Maker, even though like it's Jonathan Hickman is the one that's like given credit, because this is the person that is being written about now is the exact same character as this. He just has a different name,
Yeah.
But this is clearly, this clearly seems to be the storyline that Bendis was setting up years ago.
I don't think Bendis knew that this line would still be getting carried out 14 years later in the real world, right?
No, but I think that he probably had a future in mind for the character that maybe just never got
Oh, for sure.
like written.
For sure. I mean, that's the purpose of this little mini series that we're in right now, is like, this is Bendis, you know, starting out what he thinks is the Reed Richards Goes Evil arc. And then
so Hickman shouldn't get credit for doing the Reed Richards Goes Evil.
The roots of that are planted by Bendis here, and then it's kind of nurtured and like shaped into what it would become by Hickman. I definitely think Hickman, if you interviewed him and asked him about this, he would probably say, yeah, of course I was building off of what Bendis did. I liked what Bendis did.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, they both probably did. They should both get credit.
I think, from what I can gather, I think the two of them are kind of friendly, right? I think there's a mutual respect for each other's work there. And I've seen that across a couple different things that they've written.
Did you know, I just saw this interview with the Russos, or maybe I read something, or, you know, who can know anymore, but it was talking about how the Secret Wars that they're like building towards, you know, it's mostly going to be based on like the Jonathan Hickman Secret Wars, but they did also say, and, you know, there's going to be some stuff because like we grew up as kids with like the original Secret Wars in the 80s. And for some reason, it just makes me excited because we've met Jim Shooter, who wrote that. And I'm like, oh, dude, so cool.
And this movie's going to make $1 trillion, and he's not going to see a dime of it.
And Jim Shooter, I paid $20 for an autograph too.
Jim Shooter is going to be living off of autographs at comic cons.
That's up, dude.
For the rest of his life.
That actually makes me sad.
It kind of, yeah, it does. I was listening to a podcast this week, not to be political, but it was like very much it was a leftist podcast. And I only say that in that it's relevant that every time they were talking about like what's wrong with capitalism, they were using Marvel as the example, right? They were like, you know, we just have this like infinite sense of greed and we expect like the next newest thing, and they just keep repackaging the same stuff to us. And it's like these Marvel movies that will never end. And I was just like, man, I know exactly what they're saying. And I simultaneously love the Marvel universe and the mythos and these characters, and I'll keep watching the slop that the MCU gives us. But I know exactly what they meant by it.
Well, as long as they're good, I don't really care. You know, you wouldn't say that comic book companies that were making like new characters and new issues were like just doing it for money, right? You'd be like, they're continuing the story. Look, the Marvel movies have gotten not great. We talk about that all the time, but why shouldn't they make movies forever, right? They have 1 million characters and stories to tell. Just make them good is the problem.
Right. It's very much not about the art anymore. It's about, you know, which IP do we think is going, we can use, you know, next quarter that's going to give us 11% profits in this market. Like, it's business people running what should be a creative art.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Well, I thought that you were going to talk about how, like, the writers of the comics are probably, like, struggling when they're making $1 trillion. I thought that's what you were going to say the thing was about. And I was going to say, Zach, that I don't think you have... Let's take back the idea that you have to be left-leaning to think that there's something wrong with that, you know?
Oh, for sure.
I'm sure all of our right-leaning people would also say that there's no reason that the people who actually made all these characters shouldn't get a cut of the trillions of dollars that they're bringing in.
Right? I mean, that's their whole argument, right? When you say, like, there shouldn't be billionaires, and they're like, what if you're Jeff Bezos and you created this company that offers all of this, you know, all of these services to people way more conveniently than they ever had them before, and you do this and this and this, you just created so much value in the world, and you should be, you know, repaid for that value. It's the exact same argument for like, then pay these comic creators that invented the damn character that you just made a multi-billion-dollar movie over.
True. So am I hearing you correct that you do think Jeff Bezos should be like a billionaire because of all the good Amazon's brought into the world?
For sure, man. That's the argument that I'm making and I'm sticking with, and you can quote me on that 100%.
Well, I love it because, Zach, I order online and it's at my door in the middle of the night. So I say pay him more money.
Yeah, I do be using Amazon. You got me there.
Okay, we're still on this flashback. So right, because Reed was talking about wanting a perfect world, and he says, one that hasn't made all the mistakes this one has. I bet there's one where science isn't for sale. I bet there's one... Politics. get your fucking politics out of...
Can you believe this guy?
Liberal. I bet there's one that doesn't reward cruelty. I bet there's one where brilliance is standard. Brilliance is standard? You're in a mood. That's what Sue says back to him.
Dude, he's in that universe. He doesn't realize it, but like the Marvel universe is where everyone and their mother is like a brilliant scientist inventor of some kind.
That's actually a good point. Yeah.
We don't know how to do shit over here.
Yeah, you know what he actually means when he says this is he wants his brilliance to be like seen like a god, you know?
Yeah.
Like
it's
his
not
brilliance is not everybody's smart. It's
right.
That he is everyone knows he's the smartest, and that's what they all care about.
You're right. He's not talking about other people's brilliance. He wants like his form of brilliance to be. Yeah. Good catch.
And he says, we don't have to stay here. Don't you feel a lot of times there's nothing for us here? And Sue says, our friends and family. And he says, you know what I mean. I want to go exploring. I want to find a world we can make. Zach, get it? We can make our own.
Oh, maker.
Yeah. And Sue says, I swear, I can't tell if you're talking romantic or creepy. And Reed looks back at her. And he looks pretty creepy and menacing to me. So a lot of red flags, Sue. You probably should have caught this one earlier. So Sue's on the table, and the flashback's over. And they're trying to save her. And eventually she just like bursts up and kind of creates a force field around her. And everyone's like, Sue, and Johnny's still on fire in the hospital. So the sprinklers are still going crazy. And Johnny tries to like get through the force field and he's not able to. And Ben turns into his purple form and he like tries to go through the force field. And somehow he is just able to like walk right through it. So he talks to Sue and he's like, are you okay? And she says, how'd you come through my force field? And he's like, I have no idea. You know, you're asking me. And then she says,
"Oh shucks, I'm just the big dumb rock guy."
He's a very handsome man now. You know, we get this scene of him like next to Sue, and it's just their faces close, and he's like, "I just had to see that you're okay, baby. I can't ever lose you." And I'm like, wow, Ben is really embracing his Chad side that he's got going for him now.
He looks like an Iowa farm boy.
Yes, he does.
He's built like a brick house and becomes an all-American tight end.
100%. That's perfect. And so they need to evacuate the building. Sue says she knows what's going on. And back at the Roxxon Corporation, we're with Doc Ock and the teen team. And he says...
the Roxxon Brain Trust.
Yeah, that's what it is. And he's telling them the story of Jessica Drew and says, she wasn't born, she was made. I cloned her from Spider-Man. And she's my greatest creation. And they're like, so what does this have to do with... Oh, and this is kind of interesting. They say, let's get some blood and urine, which is interesting just because it comes up a little bit later. So they want to take some blood and urine to continue doing tests on her. And they're like, so what does she have to do with who who attacked Roxxon. And Doc Ock is like, this is all about me. You see, she came to fight me. And then the scene cuts. So nobody really knows what's going on, right? The teen team thinks that she is there to attack Roxxon again. Like, she's the one that caused the squid creature. Doc Ock is just like so narcissistic. He makes me laugh so much when he was saying that stuff. Clearly she's here looking to get revenge on me. I'm like, dude, none of us even knew that you were alive. Like, he is truly the main character of his universe, and I stand for that.
It makes me wonder if this probably came out around the same time. I don't know if it was before or after, but the episode where Walter White goes, no, all of this, it's all about me.
But the difference is he's right when he says all that. It was all about him.
Right. But the idea
But
of
that is the same thing. It's like the exact same situation.
Now that I think about it, there's more than a couple similarities between Otto Octavius and Walter White.
What are some other ones?
Think about it. It's like this kind of mild-mannered, dorky science guy who, like, loses his mind, slowly becoming, like, a criminal mastermind, right?
Yeah.
And he's just capable of, like, so much evil that you kind of didn't see when he was just a science guy.
And there's that one scene where Walter White raises his hands and says, "It was the meth."
For sure. He can control meth.
So, just then, they're about to start torturing Jessica. And then Spider-Man himself, there's an awesome panel. He jumps in, he's upside down, he's spewing his web everywhere. And he says, "Has anyone seen a crazy evil doctor with metal octopus arms and a terrible Three Stooges haircut that doesn't know how crazy he is? Oh, I found him. Never mind." And Peter pretty quickly just webs everything up and takes complete control of the situation. And he's a lot better at his job than Jessica Drew is. You know, they might be clones, but she was in a very similar situation, and she's on a table right now, and he immediately came in and webbed everything up. Is that a bad takeaway from this scene?
Well, it's an interesting question because it draws back again, how similar are they and in what ways are they different, right? Does he have like muscle memory?
Obviously, men are better at superheroing, is what you're saying. You're saying.
John, you're putting a lot of hot takes in my mouth this episode. I don't know that I like it.
No, that's not what Zach's saying. I took it out of your mouth.
Okay. It makes me wonder. So she has memories of doing all this stuff as Spider-Man. He actually lived it.
He actually did it.
Does he have like muscle memory that she hasn't quite developed yet?
That's a really interesting idea. And you're probably right. Because if you were put into like a different body, it'd take some time getting used to, even if you had the memory, like even if you knew how to control it and everying.
I think
you'd still like try to shoot a basketball shot and be like, "Oh, that's just a little off than what I'm used to."
Count for the fact that I have boobs now. That somehow threw it off.
My boobs got in the way of my keeping my elbow tucked in. Exactly. So this first panel, where he webs everything up, a couple things I want to make note of. We get that cool thing where there's like 3 Spider-Mans on the page because it shows he's like jumping around, and 2 of them, the ones that are kind of like in the past, right? Not where he is, where he was. They're very 1960s, like color.
It's just much cruder art.
I love it.
I love it too. I'm so glad you called that out. That's my favorite part of this page.
Yeah. Well, okay. I don't know that. And I have another favorite part of this page because you can see Samuel Stearns, like his neck, like sticking out of the webbing, almost like he's like trying to Hulk out. And then like in the next panel, right, he's now like the Hulk in that exact same pose. Like he's like turning into the Hulk, and then he breaks out. So that is kind of fun to me, you know, seeing the Samuel Stearns to Hulk change.
And this Hulk looks exactly like the Hulk that we have right now in the current run of Ultimates.
Except he has a Samuel Stearns head.
No, I'm saying that's what the new Hulk looks like in the run that's like going on right now.
Oh, like this? Like Samuel Stearns' head?
Like this is like the character design for the Hulk that they're using in 2025.
With this head?
Yes.
But he looks like Samuel Stearns.
Yes, he's got like a shaved head.
Okay. I kind of want to read some Hulk stuff where he's like the maestro.
When I was a kid, I had an action figure of the Maestro, and I didn't know who he was, but I was like, this guy's pretty awesome. I'm going to have him fight all my other toys.
Yeah. So Samuel Stearns' Hulk is breaking 3, and Peter, you know, just kind of, I think, webs him up again and gets Jessica Drew, and they, oh, whoops, never mind. So he tries to get Jessica Drew, and then the Hulk smashes out of his webbing and starts punching about with Spider-Man. And meanwhile, Jessica Drew goes straight for Doc Ock, and she just begins kind of like beating the heck out of him and punching him up, and he's like webbed up. So she's just going to town on him while Peter is trying to re-web up and fight the Hulk. And
we have been really harsh in these issues about when we don't understand what's happening with the art. I got to give this page its roses because it's so cool. This is like one of the funner fight scenes I've ever read.
It's better than I'm explaining it.
You can tell exactly what his like path of motion is and what his attack is for the Hulk, and it's cool and dynamic and fun to imagine, and it all happens in 2 panels because of this effect that they're doing where there's like you're seeing past Spider-Man jumping alongside present Spider-Man.
Yeah. And it's very good seeing Jessica Drew just go up and wail on Doc Ock. I am a little confused why he's not controlling metal, though.
Yeah, you would
like,
think.
Doesn't it seem like he shouldn't be incapacitated?
Yeah, there's metal all over this room. Peter's not webbing the metal down.
Yeah. But she's beating him up, and Peter's like, we need to get out of here, and he goes over to him, and Doc Ock, you know, with his broken glasses and bloodied face, he says, you know I will not allow this to go and then at the same time, Jessica Drew hits him one more time, and Peter webs up his entire face. And that's good stuff.
I love them working together. It's so fun.
Yep. And then they swing away through the city with Peter in a Spider-Man outfit and Jessica Drew in just regular people clothes. And they make it to a rooftop before they stop for a second. And Jessica Drew's like, oh my gosh, you saved me. She gives him a huge hug. It's very cute. She's like, I would have died without you in there. And she talks about how much she hates Doc Ock. It's very sad. She's like, I wanted to kill him. I wanted the entire building to blow up. What?
Ba-boom.
And then as she's saying that, yep, the entire building blows up with that organic squid creature thing that we've kind of been talking about. So maybe this was Jessica Drew.
She didn't know her secondary power is she can wish squid explosions into existence. That is funny because the very first panel
she was looking at it and it exploded, right?
Yeah, this whole series started with her saying, I want to take down Roxxon, and then the building blows up with the squid thing.
Dude, she probably would start thinking like, am I doing this?
It's pretty strange that it's happened twice.
Yeah. So at the Triskelion, Sue Storm, you know, very injured, kind of, you know, giving it all she's got. She's at the computers, and she's like, someone needs to help evacuate the building and get Tony Stark on the phone. We need all the files on Reed Richards. And Carol Danvers, director of S.H.I.E.L.D., she's like, we don't have any files on Reed Richards. I don't know. He wouldn't let us. And she's like, you're running the super spy organization in the world. You're telling me you don't. And Carol Danvers is like, look, I don't have any files on him. And then Nick Fury chimes up in the background. And he's like, hit pound 961, then type in four-eyed freak kill switch 3234 P678. Awesome. Nick Fury's no one has better moments than Nick Fury.
And he just has that memorized.
I know. It's awesome. And it's called four-eyed freak kill switch. That's great. And Carol Danvers looks at him and she says, you had secret Baxter building files? And he says, you bet your ass. And she says, when were you going to tell me? And he says, when I needed to, now. And she looks at him and says, what do you have on me? And he says, nothing you need to worry about, but maybe stop sending your boyfriend those pics. And she says, got it. Or wait, no, that's Sue Storm that says got it as she types in the computers. I thought Carol Danvers was like, got it. I'll stop sending the pictures. And immediately the entire room fills with monitors of different files and different universes. And Sue says, damn it, I didn't think he had discovered so many I didn't think he had discovered so many. And they ask so many what? And she says so many different dimensions. And Johnny Storm, for some reason, gets mad at Nick Fury. He's like, oh, so you're just stealing files off of people's computers now? And Nick's like, yeah, I didn't think that a teenager should be the only one with access to all these things. And obviously I'm right. I don't think Johnny Storm is acting very rationally right now, and that's fine because we need to remember his brain's not developed either. But
because this has come up a few times.
Why are you just getting mad at Nick Fury out of nowhere? What's the
Yeah, he just wants to really die on the hill of you're overwatching us, and we're like superheroes.
Yeah.
What is the age that the male brain develops? Isn't it 26?
26.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm only 3 years too late.
So you're so young, dude. I can't believe that. I was about to make a joke like that, and then you actually said it, and it was true. So they're like, look, we need to get these files to Tony Stark, and we need to get to a safe location. And then she looks at Captain Marvel, and she's like, I need your blood and your urine. Another kind of similarity between our Jessica Drew storyline and our Sue Storm storyline that we talked about, right?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That is interesting.
Both people have either asked or been asked for blood and urine.
And I don't think that's the first time. I feel like Gwen's been asked for blood and urine, and Peter's been asked for blood and urine several times.
This is a Bendis thing. And so she's like, listen, Reed Richards somehow managed to hijack your body. There could be evidence that tells us where he is connected with the monster in your DNA. And he's like, I'm a Kree spaceman. It's against my rules to give my genetic information. And Nick Fury, with another great moment, he pulls his gun out and puts it to his head and says, you know the expression, there's two ways to do this? That goes double for alien blood and urine.
Damn. You can either give it to us through this needle or we'll scrape it off our own walls.
Let's at what point is it no longer okay for Nick Fury to just execute sentient aliens, because obviously if this were just a human, we'd be like, oh, it's kind of messed up. You probably shouldn't kill a person. But he is right that he's like, that goes double for alien blood and urine, Is this okay now? I'm just trying to gauge the morality. I love having moral discussions on this podcast.
What's the ethical implications of holding someone at gunpoint for their blood and urine?
If they are not of this species. You know, if they were a pigeon, would it be okay?
I was going to say that is an interesting thought. And now you bring it up, like this is like the argument for veganism, right? Like just because that animal can't speak for itself and you don't think it's sentient or whatever, do you have a right to kill it to eat? The difference is this guy is like wearing clothes and talking to them, right? He is like humanoid enough.
Well, here's the thing, okay? If it was just someone from another country, we'd be like, that's wrong, right? You're not supposed to execute prisoners. If it's someone from another species or alien,
is that where we stand right now? Is that the official policy?
Well, I think that's where we stand.
Okay, all right.
If it's from another species, like an alien, where's that line? If it's from a different dimension and it's an alien, where's that line, right? We're trying to save our world here. How much do we value these lives?
We're not to Secret Wars yet. You're getting ahead of yourself.
Oh, okay. Is that a story? Is that...
Dude,
that's an interesting moral dilemma.
Sure. I would say, I think the heroic place to land is we save them all.
But the realistic place to land is we can either be the good guys or we can save the world.
Sure, Cecil.
So, as soon as Nick Fury sticks his gun out and says that, Captain Marvel says, do you have a cup or something? and then, who's this, Ben? Ben says, did you guys feel that? And then the entire Triskelion begins to crumble around them and explode, presumably from another squid monster attack. And Sue races over to the computer as it's all exploding around her, and she says, I can handle this. I've got to get this over to the Ultimates. This has to get to Tony Stark. And the building begins to collapse as Sue is trying to send these files. And from the outside, we see the entire organism, like, encompassing the building, bringing it down. And it says, to be continued.
There's helicarriers falling out of the sky.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Yep, they are.
Jets.
Wow.
John, maybe
yes.
I just don't understand, the world of, like, government espionage, but if you know the bad guy is, like, looking for you, why would you go back to the most famous headquarters on Earth?
Because they need these files. Because they need the files. I think that's the reason that they're there, right? And that's why they haven't left yet. Because Sue's like, we have to send these to the Ultimates.
They're not in the cloud?
I don't know if they had the cloud all those years ago.
Dude, they have teleportation technology.
It's like the Zoolander. They're in the computer. Do you know that scene?
I guess. Is it in the first or second one?
It's in the first one. And then Hansel, like, throws the computer on the ground, destroying it. He's like, where'd all the files go?
I guess I don't remember that.
Oh, dude, that's like one of my sister's and I's favorite scenes because then Ben Stiller's dad makes me so sad I can't remember his name right now, but that's because my brain is starting to go. Is it Frank? No, he's Frank Costanza in Seinfeld. I'm gonna look this up because that man deserves enough respect that we should know his name, not just Ben Stiller's.
He's like someone's dad in everything, right?
Jerry Stiller.
Okay.
He's like talking to his wife to get her to bring him the flash drive with all the files on it. And then he goes, just put it in a Tupperware, it'll stay. Because she's trying to argue with him about dinner while he's trying to do all this stuff. It's a very quotable line for my sister and I.
I need to watch that movie again.
Dude,
I love
it's so funny.
What we always go back to is, what is this? A school for ants?
See, dude, that brings up, in this last Daredevil episode, Kingpin makes like a really small model of the city.
We said that.
That was my first thought. I'm like, look at huge Kingpin with this teeny little model that he spent time creating.
That is the funny thing, to imagine him like gluing the little pieces together.
We need more trees. Oh yeah, okay, so the issue ends. Okay, so what were you saying? You don't why do they have to go to the building? I think it is because they need the files.
Okay, I'll accept that. You know, they've got every kind of technology. They just don't have the cloud.
Yeah. Or they don't have them backed up somewhere. That's the thing. You'd think that they're backed up somewhere else. You know,
Sure.
Surely there's a backup of the Triskelion data.
Nick Fury always has some like secret hideaway with everything he needs.
Yep. He's got an extra eye patch. We saw it in Secret Invasion. He goes and gets a safe and it has an eye patch and a gun. I think I'm like pretty hooked on this storyline. Probably the part I cared the least about was the Jessica Drew stuff, because I'm like, this doesn't really affect the overarching story, you know, at least not in a way I can see. But now we're done with that, so it's fine.
I get what you're saying, but I loved it because she's my favorite.
I know, because you love Jessica Drew. But I'm pretty hooked on where this is going. I'll give this 8 out of 10 files that we need to back up.
I actually like this one a little bit better than my issue, so I'll give this an 8.5 out of 10.
Ooh, I love it.
All right.
And then what's on next week?
Next week, next week, episode 100 of the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast, we will be ending our coverage of the Ultimate Doomsday event, and we will be reading Ultimate Doom 3 and 4.
We'll be ending our coverage of the Ultimate Doomsday event? What?
So these 3 series together were called Ultimate Doomsday.
Oh, is next week like our last one?
Yep, and then we're back in Ultimate Spider-Man.
Well, that's a good 100th episode then.
I think so too, because we've been talking about how much we like this the whole time.
Definitely.
And this leads into the Maker stuff.
Okay. I can't wait. What else you got on Spider-Man?
I'm all Spider-Man out for this week.
What about Show Spider-Man? Should we do that first?
Let's do that. Have you been watching it?
No, but I'll let you talk to me about it.
Okay. I didn't get to finish it. I have like 2 more episodes, so next week I'll talk about it.
What? At 9:00, Zach said, I'm gonna watch the final 2 episodes so I can talk about it.
Well,
we hopped on at 10.
I actually had 3 episodes, so I watched 1 and then I fell asleep.
Love that.
Yeah. Dude, it is good. You need to watch it. It's not going to be timely now when we talk about it at all. Everyone's already seen it.
That's okay. You tell me about it. I know Norman Osborn looks not, you know, he doesn't look like the Norman Osborn we always see, but he does have his nice weird hair that I love.
Yeah. Yeah, he's black. And
that's not what I meant when I said he doesn't look.
Well, I'm saying they gave him like, it's kind of like almost like a cornrow style haircut in the comics, and they gave that to him and made it just like kind of natural curls.
I think it's supposed to look like the crazy hair that the Osborns had back from like the 60s.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But it looks better now.
Yeah.
They're referencing that hair, but they made it better.
Yeah. Okay, so tell me why this show's so good. What's Spider-Man doing in it?
Spider-Man is, I mean, it's another one. Ever since Bendis did Ultimate Spider-Man, we've always got like young Spider-Man shows, right? It's another one of those where he's a high school kid who's got to figure out his powers and what it means to be Spider-Man and have responsibility and this, that, and the other. And Norman Osborn is something of a mentor figure to him the whole time, right? He's not like seemingly evil. He's just like the boss of this big company, and he's like, Peter, this is wonderful. I've discovered you're Spider-Man. We're going to work together. We're going to do so much good. And he's just like, golly, Mr. Osborn, anything you say. So knowing who Norman Osborn is, there's this tension the entire time when you're watching the show where you're faced with like a character that you actually do kind of like as well, and you can see why Peter trusts him, and you're just waiting for that sweet, sweet betrayal to come.
Well, surely there are some universes where Norman Osborn is not evil.
Well, he's always going in and out of being crazy, right? There's
that's true.
definitely been good Norman stories.
Yeah, he's going to get taken over by the Goblin.
But there's never been a story where Norman is good the whole time.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's true, because even in like the Tobey Maguire, right? Norman Osborn wasn't an evil guy.
He was a capitalist. Let's be honest with ourselves, you know. But
Well, that doesn't mean he's evil.
He wasn't a murderous goblin man, right? He was just maybe like not an attentive father and, you know, cutthroat.
Everybody do a headphone check really quick. Turn your headphones down. Because, Zach, don't you know how much he sacrificed?
For this company?
That was pretty good.
That was good.
That was a pretty good Norman Osborn there. Back to formula. Well, so did season 1 end?
Yeah, season 1's over. Like I said, still have 2 episodes to watch of it.
Oh yeah, so you don't know we don't know if Norman turned in the last episode.
No, I'm sure something's going to happen. Right, I can feel
probably something will happen.
The pressure building.
Yeah.
We got a glider reveal recently.
Oh, no.
Spider-Man gets pretty messed up, and he's like, Mr. Osborn, save me. And then a glider just descends, and he's like, Peter, climb on. And it's like, why you building those, Norman? So
to become a Goblin Man.
Yeah. So something's going to happen, and it's worth you watching, John.
Okay. I should do that. I do think during the week when I'm waiting for all of my favorite shows to come out, I'm like, oh, there's nothing to watch. I'm just waiting for Thursday or Wednesday or Sunday.
The 2 things that he will never consider is Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man
and watched Evangelion.
Neon Genesis Evangelion.
I watched an episode of that or 2.
That's good. The thing about Evangelion is you have to watch the totality of it.
I've heard.
Before you know what the story is. You can't be like, oh, I didn't like the story because
I didn't say I didn't like it.
It changes.
It just didn't catch me.
I get that.
Okay. Zach, I have so many things to talk about. Here's what I have. I have Daredevil. I have Gemstones. Not all these are going to be as long, right? Daredevil and Invincible we'll probably talk about longer than some of the other stuff. But I have Daredevil, Gemstones, Invincible, A Story from School, and Invincible. Okay. What should we do first?
Let's do Invincible first because you said it twice. So I think we're both pretty excited to talk Invincible.
Okay. There so much has happened since the last time we spoke about this. Let's see. Well, they did the Invincible War.
We talked about that.
So not really, only the finale, but that was like 2 weeks ago. But Conquest happened. What did you think?
You were right.
Conquest.
That it was mostly a fight episode, and they saved their budget for that. But I was also right in that everything that I said, well, they have to resolve this, they have to resolve that. They at least touched on those things.
Yeah.
Dude, that was such an intense episode. I was distraught when Adam Eve got f***ed up and you thought she was like gonna die.
I thought that there was a chance that she was gonna die also. I do kind of know the storyline from the comics just because I always look stuff up that I'm interested in. But so I knew that happened and that she kind of like was about to die and she regenerates herself. But when it was happening, I was still like, they could change this up. I mean, they could just kill her, you know.
This could go either way.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was, for a second, I actually thought that's what they were going to do. I was like, oh, dude, she's f***ed. She's not coming back.
I also thought Oliver was f***ed at one point.
When he was getting ripped in half?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just waiting for him to really pop Oliver and his guts fall all over Conquest and Mark just to go berserk.
Yeah.
Glad that didn't happen yet.
I'm trying to think of some of the main stuff that happened in that. The Rex's funeral. It's pretty weird that robot made a clone of Rex and is now like taking his name, right?
Oh, yeah.
I get it's not supposed to come off like that, but that's really f***ed up.
Way to steal the spotlight, buddy.
And it's really messed up that then Monster Girl is like, I love you, Rex.
Yeah.
Somebody should be a good friend to him and tell him how weird it is that he's like just going to take over this guy's life.
Well, I also think it's weird that Eve got up to the mic and was like, Rex was my first everything, and then cried and flew away. It's like, Jesus Christ, this is this guy's funeral. Is someone steals his name who already stole his body, and then someone comes up there and says, yeah, we had sex, and then like runs off. It's so weird. He did
not get a good send-off funeral.
He deserved some character that would have had something normal to say and could have held it together long enough to give us a good speech.
Well, Black Samson he had the best of the bunch where he was just like,
but it cut away from him.
We always disagreed, but he was a good guy. We were on the same side, or something or other, and that was like the best of the bunch.
Yeah. I was waiting for him to say more and it to actually get good.
Yeah. And then right after that, even Mark are talking and she's like, I really did love him. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's go have sex.
Yeah, he's just grinning at her, and he's like, I'm so happy you're alive.
Yeah, yes, that is what he says right after that. Dude. None of that, the writing was very, very, like, top-notch from the funeral scene, like, into their conversation after. But it's all forgivable, at least,
I wanted to smack all of them with, like, a rolled-up newspaper.
Yeah. Okay. I have something about Conquest. It was like my favorite thing of the whole episode.
What's that?
Well, probably, what did you think of his like big monologue about how lonely he is?
Okay, I didn't think he was that memorable of like a big baddie until he gave that. Because anyone can just be like the strongest dude and menace you and punch stuff and destroy cities and be a psychopath. But then as he's like about to kill someone and he gives them this like therapy session because he has no one to talk to except for like his victims. And then he goes, take it to your grave. I had chills. I was scared of Conquest in that moment.
It was definitely awesome. And I love that the implication of that is that he like always tells people this right before he's about to kill them. Because he can't tell it to anybody, but Conquest just feels such strong emotions. He has to get it off his chest, Yeah, dude, it I don't know. It does make him more memorable and more like scary. Did you feel bad for him at all?
A little bit. I mean, he's a monster, right?
But I know humans have such soft hearts, dude.
You can like empathize with like what pushed him to that.
There's the like scene in Community in the first episode where Jeff, you haven't seen Community, have you? Jeff's giving a speech to the study group and he's like, humans can connect with anything. It's why I can pick up this pencil, say say its name is Michael, and then break it, and you see Abed like visibly like recoil when it happens, and it's just funny. But yeah, I mean, you feel for him a little bit. You're like, oh, maybe if someone just, I don't know, maybe if the Viltrumites just weren't so crazy, they wouldn't be such conquerors.
John, I know you just said therapy isn't a catch-all, but it would have been a good start for Conquest.
Well, dude, we're going to get into therapy in Daredevil also. It does seem like maybe Conquest just needs some therapy, but also Actually, it seems like all of the Viltrumites do, because Nolan also, once he started getting some emotions, like kind of went crazy, you know?
It's terrifying that they've set Nolan up as, like, explicitly the softest, warmest, most moral Viltrumite there is.
But
right?
He might not be. He might have just been the one that was assigned to Earth. I think is the actual, like, point of what makes Earth different. I just know a little bit about what happens in the future of the Invincible comics that, like, potentially, like, the people of Earth change the Viltrumites. Like, you know.
Okay. Well, never mind then.
Well, sorry. I mean, what were you going to say?
Like, you see what kind of evil he's capable of, and like all the people he's killed and all the bad stuff he's done, and yet he was like the Viltrumite who was kind of open to eventually seeing that it was wrong and regretting it and growing and changing.
And he was kind of like their best warrior, like outside of Conquest, I think. Doesn't everyone like see him as like the hero? Like, you know, that's what everyone always talks about. Yeah. Okay, so here's my favorite line. I've been saying it in my head nonstop for the past, like, 2 weeks. Let me do my best Jeffrey Dean Morgan Conquest impression here. No one wants to be my friend. They think I am unstable. As he has blood dripping from his face with his f***ed up eye showing, and he's just destroyed half the entire city. That made me laugh so hard when he said that.
That was such a great line. Jeffrey Dean Morgan is such a good actor to deliver it, too.
Yeah, he is. It's fun that he's in The Boys also.
He is just always very good at being like a guy who's a little off in a very disturbing way. Yeah. Like, even in Supernatural, when he was Sam and Dean's dad, I was like, I don't know why, but I don't trust him.
He plays their dad?
Yeah.
Nice. And he's a bad guy? He's an anti-hero?
He's not a bad guy. It always is kind of clear that he's like he's playing something close to the chest.
I love characters like that.
Yeah. Have you not seen, I thought you've seen Supernatural.
Very little of it. I've seen like episodes, and maybe I've seen like a season or two, but it was so long ago, you know.
Because like the whole crux of the first season is they're like looking for him. And then they eventually find him.
Then that's probably like the season I saw.
Okay.
Yeah, I know there's a guy who says balls when things bad happen.
That's true.
Yeah, Invincible was really good. I'm excited for season 4. We only have to wait 5 years for 8 episodes. Anything else on it?
Nope. Good show. Love it. Can't wait to start reading the comics.
Okay, so let's go into Gemstones.
All right, the show I haven't seen. Let's go.
The show you haven't seen, but it's so good, and basically this is just going to be a 30-second pitch for you to watch it. It's so good, Zach, and it's so funny. And episode 1 of season 4, this is. Holy mackerel, is it good. Bradley Cooper stars in it.
Wow.
I won't like spoil anything about the plot or the setting or the time period it's in, which I guess by saying that I'm kind of spoiling a little bit, but man, it's just such a good episode. It's not like the funniest thing ever. It's more of just like an intro to the season, but dude, just it'll get you hooked. You just got to watch it. And then season 2 was like classic Gemstone comedy gold.
So this is the start of season 3?
This is the start of season 4, I think.
Okay. But I'll have to start with season 1.
You should start with season 1, but honestly, if you even wanted to just like start with that first episode of season 3, I mean, you could very easily start with it, and you know.
What is it on?
HBO.
Okay. I
Max.
have that. Yeah. I don't have that, but I'm borrowing it from a webhead.
Dude, are you serious?
Yeah.
That's hilarious. It's just really good. So you should check it out. Everyone should check it out. And it's My Cat Baby Billy's named after one of the characters.
All right. Well, I might have to do that then.
Okay, Daredevil, and then we're done.
Dude.
And this we do have a lot to talk about because we have not talked about any of the episodes, I don't think.
The devil of not Hell's Kitchen anymore.
Is it not?
Where's he at? He's like in Brooklyn now or something.
Oh, I don't know where Hell's Kitchen is anyways.
Well, they make a point. He's like, I don't get down to the kitchen much anymore. Like, it's traumatic for him to even go back there. But Hell's Kitchen is, it's the neighborhood that's just west of Times Square.
Okay. So, did we talk about the first couple episodes? Or did I just like, or did you text me about it?
So you had seen them. They had just come out. I hadn't had a chance to watch them yet. I have now. You said the first like 5 minutes looked kind of rubbery.
I think it's because anytime they have like fights on a set, it's like you can just tell. Because I watched it again and I'm like, you can just tell that this is like a set to me. Like they're trying to make it look like they're actually fighting through this bar, but it just looks so staged. And I don't know. I also think, I could be wrong about this, but you know, Daredevil's like famous for the one-shots.
Yes.
And I actually heard, and it doesn't mean it's true, that big one-shot they did of the Daredevil Bullseye fight, it's just made to look like that. It's not actually a one-shot.
Oh, I would believe that.
Which would make sense because Marvel doesn't ever do anything good, you know. They're like, just, right? That's like the definition, just like, oh, it's supposed to look like this, so we'll just pretend that we're actually doing this, you know?
Did you ever see the movie 1917? The
No.
World War I movie? It was supposed to be like all one continuous shot. Like you are walking next to this guy as he's like making his way across the battlefield for the entire duration of the movie. And it's not, obviously. Like sometimes they will go into a dark tunnel and then come out on the other side and there'll have been like a sneaky cut right there.
Yeah.
So it's a series of like maybe 6 minute long one shots that then will pick up where the other one left off. I'm sure that's how they did it in Daredevil as well. Like when they go through the smoke or whatever, they probably, okay, cut there and pick it up.
Yeah, and I thought like all the smoke looked kind of goofy. I'm like, I don't know. I can just like hear the assistant director off screen being like, okay, cue the smoke machine and go. You know, it just like looks like that. That's just how it's all like, it's just not choreographed. Like, I won't say it's not choreographed well, but it's just not choreographed. Like, I don't know. It just looks too fake for me.
I get what you're saying. And I also think it's kind of a victim of its own success where they're trying to evoke and follow up the great hallway fight from the first season of Daredevil on Netflix that everyone loved, and it was super low budget. Like it was something that some like talented student filmmakers could have done.
Well, and now they're trying to make it the most expensive thing. Like that's like
exactly
the problem with sometimes trying to do things the most expensive way possible.
Yes, it'd be like if one of my favorite like underground punk bands suddenly was given $1 million to make their album and they worked with the most expensive producers, and you know what they would produce, even if it sounded quote unquote good, it wouldn't be the reason why you started listening to that band in the first place. You know, you liked the fact that it was kind of grimy and honest.
Yeah, this is like overproduced. It's too like perfect looking, or so, you know, it feels off because it's not right.
Right. The original thing felt so organic and real.
Yeah. But I do generally have good things to say about this series, or at least I did, Zach, after the first 2 episodes. But man, episode 3 just really bored me. Is that
the White Tiger episode?
Yes, and that's fine. I guess when I think of things that like bore me, I'm like, why do we have to sit in therapy with Kingpin? Why is everything about therapy nowadays? We're like, oh, let's sit and look at Kingpin and Vanessa in therapy, and let's hear all about Adam and how now the Kingpin, who's like the most badass person in the world, is just like a cuck who's like, okay, I won't kill Adam because you don't want me to, honey.
You know what I kind of wondered if they were doing? It felt almost like a Sopranos reference to me, right? Because you've got this big mob boss in New York. I know Sopranos is New Jersey, but same thing. You got this big mob boss in New York sitting in like an awkward therapy session with his wife as like the B or C plot. I don't know that maybe it's because I've been watching Sopranos this year, but that felt intentional to me.
Yeah.
Well, not saying it was the right choice, but I thought
Tony
they were
Soprano's
trying to do
son
something.
is also like in the show, so
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So it wouldn't surprise me if that was somehow, I don't know, the director or the writer like the Sopranos and was kind of throwing in some Easter eggs, or not Easter eggs, but just like, yeah. So what do you think? I don't know. I kind of am hating where Kingpin is at, and I'm kind of getting bored with Matthew Murdock also. And I want Kingpin to start Kingpinning, and I want Matt Murdock to start Daredeviling. And luckily, at the end of season 4, we seem to be getting that.
Episode 4.
Episode 4, yep. I'm so glad that it turns out Kingpin has that dude locked up and is torturing him. I'd have been so upset if he just, let this slide. Dude, you're going to the Kingpin's wife and he's just going to let it slide? That guy's brain should have been in a car door by the end of the night.
Yeah. I knew it's like the Norman Osborn thing that I was saying with Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. You're just waiting. It's like a ticking time bomb for when is Kingpin going to become Kingpin again. And I kind of like that tension while they're playing with it. I don't want it to go on the entire season.
Yeah.
I want to have some good conflict once he has snapped. But it's kind of fun watching him get furious at his political aides. And you're like,
definitely.
The old Wilson Fisk would have turned this guy into soup within a second.
Well, that's like one of my favorite parts of this last episode was when he was just screaming at his political people, because it feels like he's starting to lose control a little bit and get, frustrated with everything. Which he should, because,
they're not getting anything done.
His wife was f***ing someone else, and then he went to therapy, and the therapist was like, tell me about Adam. What drew you to him? Yes, what made you want to cheat on your husband with him? Let's dissect this. I'm like, dude, snap. Throw someone through a window.
I am also having fun relating to Kingpin in the sense that he's like, I've won the mayorship now. We should be able to fix this city. And they're like, Mr. Mayor, it's not that simple. There's red tape. There's asses you have to kiss. There's dinners you have to go to. We can make marginal changes. And he's like, that's not good enough. I'm like, I know he's supposed to be this Trumpian figure, and I know he's a bad guy and he's the Kingpin and everything, but I find myself rooting for him every time these tell him he can't do something.
I agree. And oh shoot, it kind of brings me back to that everything is just so boring nowadays, because we just watched the Captain America movie, and the crux of the movie is this treaty with Japan just has to go through, and now we're watching Daredevil and Kingpin, and he's like, I filled this pothole, I got this done, now I'm in marriage counseling with my wife, and it's why is everything just so boring? Can't we just have superhero fights?
Well,
it's by trying to make it realistic and down to earth, all you've done is make it boring.
John, I disagree so hard. I get what you're saying for the Captain America movie. That should have been maybe more of a spectacle, but Daredevil has always been a street level superhero. And now
so I'd like to see him doing some street level superheroing things.
Kingpin is literally doing street work. I mean, wow. poetry.
This was, dude. Okay, it made me laugh really hard when Kingpin was listening to the kids sing. That's a hilarious scene.
Yes. I love that. And then he goes to the other place and they're also singing We Built This City.
And it's after that he like freaks out and just like screams at everybody. That was hilarious. So
I don't know what makes people think, oh yeah, Kingpin, Wilson Fisk, our mayor, the former mob boss. I bet his favorite song is We Built This City by Starship.
It must be because I kind of like heard this. It must be because that's what his campaign song was.
Oh.
Now it makes sense why they're singing it.
That's a dumb campaign song for
I think
him.
that's kind of fun.
You look at him and that's
like you see him coming out to doing little Trump dances out on stage.
No, he's more dignified than that. His campaign song has to be like Ave Maria.
Yeah.
As he's eating a bloody steak.
So the kids had their school play this weekend. I saw it on Friday, and then afterwards, it was really good. It's always so good. But my sister and I went. We do not stick around for that. The show ends, and I don't want to talk to all my kids. I don't want to talk, right? So we like dip immediately. The show ends. We're like, we can get out of here. We'll try to beat the traffic before at least. Then we went back to her house and watched the new Daredevil episode. And Kingpin is listening to all the kids sing. And they're like, okay, for our next song. And he's like, no, thank you. Kids are so talented. Please. And my sister goes, wow, that was us at the play like 30 minutes ago. It made me laugh so hard. I was like, these kids are so talented, but no, there's no need for an encore, please.
That is too funny.
Yeah.
I got it. You're going to hate this. I can already tell, but I got to give the show its roses in one other aspect.
Dude, I'm having a ton of fun with the show. It's just always easier to think of the things that like kind of annoy you than,
Sure.
When 85% of the show is like good and 15% I have things to complain about, that's what we spend. It's easy to be like, everything's good except for these things.
Sure. My biggest issue with the original Daredevil show when it was on Netflix was they should really be playing up the double life where like half of the episode or thereabouts, but like half of the focus of the show is him trying to solve things by the books through the system as a lawyer. And then half of it is him realizing that sometimes that's not good enough and he has to go out and be Daredevil.
Well, I think that's what they're getting to.
Well, I never thought they did enough of the lawyer stuff, right? It was always like in the background and just a little too short for me. I wanted some episodes that felt like a court procedural show, with some high stakes drama added in. And I feel like we're finally getting that in this version in Born Again.
Yeah. Well, I would like to see some conversation with Matt about how like he's kind of the reason that this guy's dead now, because he's the one who like gave away his secret identity and then someone came and murdered him.
Well, we kind of get that from his niece.
But I want to see Matt's guilt. I need to see some good Matt Catholic guilt here. You know,
he's got to be crying on the steeple of a cathedral.
He's not really beating himself up about it. He's being like, my client was innocent and I got him off and he's still dead and no one seems to care. But I want to see you taking responsibility for that,
Sure.
He's not dead because you got him off. He's dead because you told everybody that he's a vigilante,
That's true. That is strange that Matt isn't beating himself up about that. Maybe it's because he's dating a therapist. Maybe she's told him it's not his fault.
Maybe therapy's a scam. Anyway,
from our sponsor, BetterHelp.
I feel like people are getting the correct idea about my thoughts on therapy from this issue. Anyways, what what is next on Daredevil? Is there anything else? Oh, the Punisher came back also. And he's awesome. And we need to see more of him.
That was fun. It was good to see him. He's a good actor. He plays the character well. It felt very forced when he walks into the room, and all of a sudden...
It was 100% forced.
You got to clap like a seal for the Punisher. And thank God, I guess they tried to get John Bernthal to be in the show more. And he was like, he saw what they had planned, and he's like, nah, that's not what my character would do.
No, I'm about to, you are like somewhat correct here, but you're mostly wrong.
Oh.
Okay. Here's what actually here's the story of this Daredevil season, and here's why it seems so forced when there's scenes like that, and it's like, oh, cool, we got the Punisher back, and the Punisher is awesome, but it feels different. It's just not as good as it should be, because they filmed the entire first season of this show, and there was no Punisher, no Karen Page, no Foggy Nelson, and no Vanessa. And then Vanessa was played by like a different actress. And then they like showed it to people, and they were like, okay, this is not a good show at all. Daredevil's not daredeviling until like episode 9, the final episode. None of our favorite characters are in this. This is a bad show. And they restructured the whole thing. They like fired the creative team, brought in a new creative team, brought back Karen, Foggy, and they basically made that first episode. The season started with episode 2, the original season, and afterwards they basically remade the pilot episode with those people. Said, oh, Foggy died and Karen moved away, instead of just all this happening off screen. And it was the first season that the Punisher, that the actor was like, I'm not being in this. This isn't good. And then when they remade it, they like were able to bring him back. So this first season, it kind of like stinks thinking about, but there's kind of like this like air to it that's like, okay, the first season is kind of going to be, and the real creative team started making this show in season 2. Because season 1 was basically already filmed to a degree. They're just moving pieces around to make it fit how they want it to fit now,
So what you're saying is, in like 4 years, we'll get the real Daredevil Born Again as it should have been.
Pretty much. We'll get season 2 4 years from now. But it's also why I don't really like, just to touch on things I don't like, but I don't like that they seem to be like making... I fear that they're going to make like Vanessa the Kingpin. And
I have had that thought
not
myself.
Going to be, and they're going to be like, because she's running everything and she's so good at it. Everything's being run so well under Vanessa. And at one point, that one guy goes, I don't work for the mayor. I work for the man. And I'm like, is he talking about Kingpin? Or is he talking about Vanessa? And I think he's talking about Vanessa.
I think he's talking about Wilson Fisk, the man.
I thought that too, but I don't think so, because I think he's working with her. But I don't know. They haven't really explained. I'm hoping he is working. I'm hoping he means Wilson Fisk and not the mayor also, because that would be a reasonably good line, right? I don't work for the mayor. I work for Wilson Fisk. He's just like pretending to be the mayor,
or he exists in other.
Yeah, the mayor is just part of his job. He has other jobs, and I work for all of them. Right? That's a better line. But I'm not sure if it is, and I fear that they're going to make Vanessa like the Kingpin, and I'm just going to hate that.
I've also thought it was maybe building to that, or to like him having to, fight her for the throne.
He
or
should
something.
Kill her.
Well, because there was
I'm
that line.
I'm so sick of this puppy dog, lovesick Kingpin. Dude.
They've already talked about, are you safe in your marriage? And she's like, I told her I am, and I feel that way, but should I? That could come up again.
Yeah. Every time my sister hears him talk, she's like, does the impression just like I do. And I'm like, I do an impression of Kingpin every single time when he says anything. Yeah, it's awesome. He's awesome. And the show, I think, will get good, even though we've spent some time complaining about the things I don't like. I'm pretty excited for episode 5.
Yeah. When's that come out?
Wednesday.
Okay.
Maybe Thursday. I don't remember.
Gotcha.
Whichever one Invincible wasn't, that's when Daredevil is.
Okay. All right. You got anything else?
Sure. I have one more very small thing. So,
Okay.
obviously, I always say how my sister and I were watching stuff, but we also watched the Daredevil or the Deadpool and Wolverine movie. And I have some notes when Channing Tatum came on the screen.
Okay.
All she said was, why the f*** is he talking like that?
Had she not seen it yet?
I don't know. Maybe she had and she just forgot. But that was the whole time watching it. Anytime he said anything, she was just like, "Oh, we got to put on our stupid accent because Channing Tatum's talking."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really
stuff.
played that up.
I loved it. That's all I've got.
All right. How was that movie on a rewatch? I'm just curious. I feel like
fun.
it would be worse.
The stupid thing where Deadpool and Wolverine are about to fight, and they have a really cool moment where Deadpool, pulls his guns out and Wolverine gets into his position and gets his claws, and he says, "Let's f***ing go." And it's just like about to be the coolest fight ever. And then they stop for 10 seconds for Deadpool to turn to the camera and say, "Get your special sock out, nerds. This about to be good," is still the worst part of that movie. And it should be cut out. So on every single screening of that movie, in every file, they should cut that scene out because it's so bad. And it just takes away from like the tension that's building of the scene that they're about to like go on. It's just awful. And there's a couple moments like that in it on rewatch, but generally it's a lot of fun.
And you just know that was Ryan Reynolds' favorite line, and he fought to keep it in.
I just hate it's so
that
stupid.
Seems like his sense of humor to a T.
And I think I said that to Caitlin. She's like, but that's Deadpool. He's always making comments.
Yep.
I'm like, yep, he is. But it's pretty good. It's worth a rewatch.
Okay.
Yeah. Nice. Anything else?
You got a jam of the week? You been listening to anything?
No, Falling in Reverse.
Oh, all right. Is that just going to be your standing jam of the week moving forward?
It just gets me hyped during the volleyball season here we've got going on,
John, I got to put you onto some better music.
Dude, it's so good.
Okay.
Go on. What's your jam of the week?
My buddy he kept playing Funny Papers by Mac Miller in the car on our doomed trip last weekend, so I'll make it that.
Okay, Funny Papers in the car. All right, I'm going to send us out. This was a long one, which is good because we took a week off.
Yep.
Thank you so much to Ian Hickey for the music and Alyssa Seaman for the artwork. And thank you all for listening and leaving us a review or a comment. You can find us the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast on Spotify or Apple Music. Oh my gosh, we have a comment to read.
Oh my God, we do. Thank you so much for reminding me of that.
I almost forgot.
This one was so nice. It's from Lars Carlson. They said, "Hi, just wanted to say hello and tell you how much I appreciate the podcast. And honestly, you guys too. You seem like good people. I like the values that you let shine through every once in a while."
Aw.
I'm a fan in Sweden, and it seems like I'm a bit older than you. I'm in my 40s, but I've been a comic book guy and a Marvel fan most of my life. I read Ultimate Spider-Man back in the day. It felt like a breath of fresh air when the ordinary Spidey comics was a mess in a lot of ways. Never did finish the entire Bendis run, though. His style grew old on me. Anyways, I'm not really up to date in my listening. I'm at episode 50, so a lot of listening along with you guys. Long may you podcast.
Thank you so much, Lars. That's really nice. Think how surprised he's going to be when he gets to episode 99 and hears his comment.
You're halfway there, dude.
Yep. Okay, so once again, you can find us, the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast, on Spotify or Apple Music or anywhere else you find podcasts. And you can leave us a message on Instagram at First Read Podcast. Send us an email at firstreadspidey@gmail.com or find us on YouTube, the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast. See you next week.